Namaste, everyone, and welcome back to the sixth episode of Empower Hour. This time, we have two guests on this show who are twin flames in union, who are empaths, who are healers, and who have been working with the collective while they are passionately working on their mission. Many people have this question in their mind that when twin flames actually come in the physical union, what is it like? How does it feel like? Now, everybody would have a different scenario, a different experience when it comes to twin flame union. No twin flame union is the same. But here is our chance to understand how this particular couple has been navigating through their experience. In this interview, we have extensively discussed about how did they meet, how did they get awakened, how did they recognize each other, how did they cope up with their running chasing cycles, how did they deal with their soulmate connections and their marriage, how did they activate their mission, and how did they finally come into a physical union. What do they understand about twin flame union? How does it feel when they are in a union? What are the specific challenges when it comes to being in the physical twin flame union, and how different it is from a normal romantic conventional relationship? We are going to discuss all these things in this interview. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's welcome Justin and Michelle.
We just want to thank you. Thank you for coming on our podcast last year and sharing your story, because it changed our lives and our experience. And it was meant to. I mean, you're our soul sister and Prasad is our soul brother. Our twin flames are even more closely connected and alive than other. And we're here to help each other, the twin flame pairs too. So thank you for your
I so much resonate with that. And I also thank you so much for being there, because even though we don't interact on daily basis, there is something in your mind. Once you have interacted with somebody, you connect in some way. And then so many times I have thought about you that, okay, I haven't talked to you in many days, like hope she's fine. And there were days when you had vanished and I did not know what you were up to. And then suddenly I received your email that, oh, we have been going through this challenge. Last year, Justin developed a certain heart condition and he had to undergo a heart surgery on 4th February 2022. And this whole period when Michelle and Justin figured out that there is some sort of a heart condition Justin is facing and it could be really risky, there has been a great roller coaster in their life and they have been dealing with a lot of challenges. However, by God's grace, the surgery took place, Justin was operated, and he's very well recovering from his heart surgery. The cost of this treatment has been pretty expensive, and Justin and Michelle have been raising funds to be recovered from whatever losses they incurred during this particular challenging period. As you all know, that my twin flame Prasad passed away due to a certain heart condition last year. He had not told me about it. And when I got to know, there was something he was dealing with, which I did not know about. And if I knew about his heart condition, I would have gone out of my way to do anything, whatever it takes to get him treated and get him going with his life. But somehow that has been my biggest regret.
I was going to talk about Justin's heart condition with respect to what you went through. It's amazing that I met you and we went, we had our interview, and then it wasn't even 2 months after our interview last year that we got Justin's diagnosis confirmed of his heart condition. And all I could think about was you, all I could think about was you for the longest time and what you'd been through. And it just really drove home the importance of taking care of him, because all I could think was, okay, Padnyaa and Prasad came into our lives to show us, how important taking care of these bodies are, and going ahead and doing what needs to be done no matter what. We put aside everything for a year to get his heart taken care of. Everything. I mean, I have hardly written in our books. We've continued to counsel and meet with people, but this was the most important thing. And thank you to you and to Prasad.
I'm so glad to have you both here, especially on this day. It is a sign for me When I heard about Justin's case, when I was talking to Michelle, I immediately thought that this was my great chance to extend whatever support I could extend to Michelle and Justin to help them recover the cost for their treatment. And I would definitely feel that if not my own twin flame, I could help somebody else to get them through this particular challenging period. And that is why I want to urge the whole twin flame collective. Our fellow soul brother has been going through a certain challenge and he needs our help. So even if it is a very, very small amount, it is going to make a huge difference. So I urge all of you to check the links which I have given in the description. There is a link given for Twin Flame Warriors, which is a website of Justin and Michelle, and they have given the detailed information about what Justin has been going through and how they have been treating him and what sort of funds are required to recover the costs. So I urge all of you that please go ahead and do your contribution in whichever way you can. All the links you will find below in the description of this video. Definitely have something more in your kitty to share with people. But I want to ask you, like, in a brief, kind of a brief, could you guys tell me, like, how did you meet? What was your story? How did you recognize each other? What was that journey? In a brief.
Sure. I'll go first. Okay. So we were both in our early 40s, late 30s, early 40s, and we'd been married to soulmates who we cared for very much for basically almost 15 years at the point that we met. But we were both really unhappy in the lives that we built. We built lives that were based on what everybody else said should make us happy, and every year that we invested in those lives, it felt harder and harder to change and get away. And we both came to a point where we started looking outside of our marriage because we both knew something was wrong. We didn't blame it on our partners necessarily, but we felt like we're not right. I felt like, what do I need to do? There's something missing. There's something that's not right. Maybe my husband is still supposed to be part of my life, but there's something else. So I went looking outside of my marriage for other partners. It started out as wondering if my sexual orientation was I misunderstood my sexual orientation. So I started to look for, female relationships. And then I realized slowly over a couple of years where, my husband couldn't accept that I was questing and I was trying to be honest with him and trying to look for what was going on. It turned into clandestine affairs with other people. And Ashley Madison was the cheating website that I used. And I found Justin. And one of the very first times that I went on the Ashley Madison website to search, this profile picture came up of a blue iris. That's all that his profile picture was. And instantly my whole body was galvanized. I was like, I know that eye. And I was like, that was something I'd actually considered doing for my profile picture, was just putting a picture of my eye. And I thought, this is so strange, but I didn't send him a note or anything. I didn't do anything. Then I wasn't even a couple days later when I received a contact request from him. And it just was kind of overwhelming. I thought, okay, this person came to my attention. Now they're reaching out to me. We made an appointment to meet over lunch. And we met for lunch on June 11th, 2015, here in Portland, Oregon. And when I arrived at the restaurant that we agreed to meet at, it was so strange. Something had come over me that morning, even driving to the restaurant. I was deep in depression, anxiety. I was addicted to opioids. There was all kinds of things going on with me, but I was a high functioning person still. I was still running my life and everything. But that day it felt like something took me over from inside. And I got there and I walked into the restaurant. I knew where he was. I just knew. And I walked around the corner and there's this light coming down from the ceiling. And I thought, he's over there. And I was like, I shook my head and I thought, I'm crazy. And I just kept walking. And he stood up and looked at me. And it was like a voice spoke in my head and said, he's over there. There he is. And dust motes were dancing and it looked like lights. And I just was lost in the cosmos for a moment. And then continued walking up to him, and the conversation we had felt very, it didn't feel awkward like a lot of those conversations were, where we were meeting people, we were doing clandestine things and so on and so forth, and didn't want people to find out about it. We had this conversation, which was really easy, over lunch, and we left. We walked out, we went to go to the car, and Justin said to me, "Do you want to go somewhere and kiss?" And I'd never really kissed or made out with most of the guys I'd met at that point in my, right at first. It was sort of like I really wanted to, I was looking for a particular connection, I guess. And I was like, yeah, let's. And so we went and we parked in the IKEA parking lot. And it was going between sun and rain that whole morning. And it was like raindrops were falling on the car and I could hear them. And we leaned in to kiss, and our lips touched. And the way that I describe it is it was like the earth that I'd always lived on came apart like this, and it twisted and it went ka-thunk like that. And I felt it. My whole entire body felt it. And we both jerked back. And Justin goes, "What was that?" Oh, and I said, "I don't know. You felt it too, oh dear." We lost the light.
Your spirit guides are confirming your movement.
I said, "You felt it too?" And he said, "Yes." And we just leaned back in to continue kissing. It was like it was like everything changed. And from that moment on, life was totally different.
Story's pretty much the same, except for, I want to fill in a little bit about me and where I was at that time when I started searching. A lot of it had to do with, well, I weighed like 375 pounds at the age of 39, and they were telling, the doctors were pretty much saying, "Hey, you need to take care of this, or, something's going to happen." And so I had to learn and finally identify that I needed to love myself before I could change anything in my life. And so I just started taking care of my body. I mean, this transformation went maybe a year and a half, where I went from 375 pounds to 170 pounds. So it was a big, huge drop in weight, and being able to wear different clothes. I mean, my wardrobe changed every 2 months. I had to get new clothes every 2 months and stuff. So for me, it was finally coming to a point where I needed to take care of my own person, where before I was more of a servant and trying to help everybody else, pushing off all the stuff that I needed to do off to the side and take care of someone else and not concentrate just on myself. And so that's where I was. And then once that happened, then I was just a different person. Into my ex-wife, I was different. That's because I finally had confidence in myself, where before I didn't have any self-esteem. It had been just thrashed over the years that I just did not have that in my possession. And all of a sudden I had this confidence. And then I was like, okay, what else needs to change in my life? And then that's when things started changing, kind of like what Michelle mentioned and stuff. And I went on Ashley Madison and did all those things and was looking for something else. Obviously there was something missing in my life, couldn't figure out what it was. And that's what led me that direction. And so all the way up to the point where, she describes the kiss and stuff, it was the same for me. It was just like something I'd never felt before.
So was there any sort of a running, chasing happening in your connection? And how was it for you when you awakened? Like both of you were awakened at the same time? What was the
Definitely we had a leader and a follower. I don't even like those words. We had someone who went first. Went first and someone who went second. And what we've come to realize through all the twin flame couples, like you may have noticed this too, that we've talked to, is it always seems like one goes a little ahead of the other, because you've got to there's got to be a pattern. Somebody's got to figure it out to start unraveling things so that the other can begin to mirror them. So after that first meeting and that first kiss, we started seeing each other it was hard to get our first tryst together, and it took about a month. It was such an otherworldly experience. I would say at that time I was running a bit from the connection because it was so intense, and I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't going looking for love with someone else other than my husband. I was looking for a fulfillment that I couldn't identify. But being with Justin felt natural, and like being with myself, and I didn't feel like I had to compete with the rest of the world or put away any part of myself. When he and I were together, I just kind of let myself be who I was, which it really wasn't ever with any other person. So it was scary for me. I didn't run at first, but after we'd been seeing each other for about 6 months. The story we told everybody that we met at that time, including each other, was, oh, I'm just looking for one person to have an affair with and, and give me what I'm looking for missing in my marriage. And that wasn't true. We were both pursuing relationships with a lot of people. We were looking for something and we didn't know what it was. Even though we found it in each other, there was this denial or lack of recognition. We weren't awakened. We were very much asleep. And so after about 6 months, I logged on to Ashley Madison one day, as I usually did. And I saw that he was logged on live. And I thought to myself, he told me he wasn't looking for anybody else. What is he doing on here? And I just messaged him one word. I was like, it's a cuss word. And I blocked him everywhere. It was completely, I had been thinking how I didn't like that I liked Justin so much. And it was like I was looking for an excuse to not continue this connection. And so I blocked him. I blocked him everywhere and went about my business, meeting with other people. And what was interesting was what started happening at that point when I ran was everything else in my life got even worse than it already was. Like I mentioned, I had an opioid addiction. It got worse. My depression, all of my mental health issues just began to get even worse. And more than once, there was 5 months when we were separated where I had blocked him. It was almost 5 months. And during that time, I thought about him every day, but I thought, this is silly. This is stupid. I can't have him. I don't want him. I'm staying married. Don't think about it. And so I kept pushing and running. My opioid addiction got so bad to the point that my kidneys started to shut down. And I ended up in the emergency room. And of course, I lied to all the doctors and tell them about all the stuff that I was on, but it was kind of this wake up moment. And I went home and I took all the pills that I'd been taking, bottles and bottles of them, and I hid them away underneath a sink. And I said, that's it, I'm done. I quit all these things cold turkey, things that you shouldn't quit cold turkey. So I began this whole detox and withdrawal process, which was incredibly painful and awful to go through. But I remember the worst moment of it. I was lying naked on the bathroom floor after I'd been in the shower for 2 hours until all the hot water ran out. The only thing that could make my body stop hurting during that detox process was this shower on me. And I had to climb out because it had gotten cold, and I was lying on the floor and I was begging. I didn't believe in God. I didn't believe in love. I didn't believe in the spirit team at that time. And I was just begging anybody out there to end this for me, help me end this. And I was like, I can't stand this. I just have to end it. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just take one pill. I'll just take one pill. And I went over and I was scrabbling under the sink and trying to find the pills, which I couldn't find. I knew they were in there, but they did not come to my hand. And I laid back on the floor and I felt myself float up to the ceiling, and I was looking down at myself. And all I could think in that state, I was like, well, I'm not ready to leave yet. And I just want to see Justin popped into my head. And when that happened, I went back into my body and I was like, okay, I am absolutely done with the pills. It never, after that moment in time, never occurred to me to take another pill. I didn't want another one. I didn't reach out to Justin though. I went ahead and went through the rest of my detox. That was like in March. Things got worse then after that. Even though my physical health started to improve, I made myself stop. I started to take better care of this body and me, and I became more committed to my therapy. He was still missing, and my relationship with my husband deteriorated even worse. So our fights became more common. He knew about my cheating. We were trying to go to couples therapy, and it all just got worse. And it all came to a culmination right before our wedding anniversary in June. I attempted suicide. I'd attempted it once a couple of years before, and I attempted it in June of that year. I was not successful. I woke up the next morning and I just thought, my life has to change. It was the next day after that, 2 days after my suicide attempt, that I received an email from Justin at an email address that I still think to this day I never gave him, because it was my real email address. I didn't give people who I was having affairs with my real email address, and somehow I received this email from him. And all it said was, I think about you every day and I wonder why you cut off all contact. I just wanted you to know, that the connection we had is, I've never felt anything like that before. It was like 3 sentences. That's not exactly right, but it was that sentiment, very short. And then a little smiley face and Justin. And it was like my body broke apart. Whatever shell had been building up after that, detox and the suicide attempt, it all just came open, and I unblocked him everywhere. And I started texting him back and we got back in contact, and he never like reproached me or complained or anything. It's just like we were back in contact. And from that day after, I don't think there was a day really where we were ever out of contact, pretty much, unless we were literally like, if we were on vacation and we literally couldn't, we were with other people and couldn't reach out. And so that was the end of my running and chase.
What was happening in Justin's life when he was blocked?
Yeah. Well, I continued to search for the connection, because I was like, well, if I had that connection with one person, maybe I can find that again. So for those months, I continued to see other people. And I did have people that I regularly saw this whole ordeal. But then it just got to one point where I was like, gosh, nothing is matching the same thing that I had with Michelle. I can't find that. And that's what led to that email being written, and just to find out what was going on. And I don't even know how I got her email address. Somehow I had it. I know I don't know if it was tied to a phone, because we were texting back and forth to your phone. So I'm not sure exactly how I got the email address, but I went ahead and sent it. And then, from there on, we started seeing each other all the time. But like I said, during that other period, I was, still searching who I was and why I had a special feeling with one person, but I wasn't feeling that with anyone else. That same connection, not even with my wife. So there was lots of questions that I was continuously trying to search and reach out to, and try to, at that point, I wasn't going through any spiritual awakening. I just know that I was on this journey of trying to figure things out. I mean, I was a Jehovah's Witness when I was born as a child, 25 years as a Jehovah's Witness. That didn't work. I had to go out and figure out what else was out there. I then went into a non-denominational Christian church over here for about 3 or 4 years. That was showing me the exact same things I was going through as a Jehovah's Witness. So that wasn't appealing. That was not the right thing. Religion, man-made religion, was not something that I was finding comfort in. I knew that I was lost. There had to be something else out there, and where to focus that energy, because you kept putting your trust in men instead of, your spiritual team that you do have. I think each one of us has a spiritual team. And the communication between them was never there, because it was blocked out, because we were taught growing up that, yeah, you're supposed to read the Bible, trust the Bible. But I always found myself looking towards the pastor as, okay, he's got all the answers. I can't find them. I need to seek truth through him and not through myself. And so I could see that's where religion had really balled that kind of stuff up for me, that, it kept putting people in front of me that I wanted to have what they had, or tried to figure out what they had, but it still was not something that I wanted. It wasn't something personal enough for me. It was almost like putting on a mask every single day to go out and just be a part or be in association with those folks. So.
And then to take it to the next step, like the whole awakening, right? We were very asleep during all of this, and Justin had pursued all these religious ways of awakening. And I had completely shut religion and spirituality out of my life. I was raised in a household where God was not allowed to be mentioned, or church or religion. I was left to figure everything out on my own because of my dad's feelings about religion from his upbringing. So I had this complete tabula rasa, nothing to tell me how to think about religion, whereas Justin had gone through all these patterns. So after we met and we got back together, that running and chasing, that was in the summer, that was June of 2016 when we got back together. And by the weekend of November 11th, 2016, which is funny, 11/11, that was my awakening moment. And what was really interesting was when I got back with Justin, I started to feel better all the time, especially after my body was close to his, right? I had this feeling of wellness, and it felt like I wasn't mentally ill at all. I didn't have the same kind of problems that I was having before, but they'd creep back in. So I went and I started doing things like going to singing bowls. I started going to different classes and groups and learning about spiritual things that I didn't believe in before. I went to this meeting about this woman was showing people how to use the spirit box. And the things that I heard coming through that spirit box were not the same as the other people in the room. And it actually culminated in that moment. It was funny. It culminated in me realizing that there were spirits trapped there, or souls who wanted the light opened up for them. And everybody else in the room was treating it like a sideshow. And I got really upset and I stood up and I threw my arms wide and I said, I'm opening the light. You cannot force these souls to stay here. I never acted like that. I never did things like that when I was younger. And I did. I felt this opening in me and I felt like the sky open up above me. And I felt like I was feeling these thank yous and all of this stuff. And so there were several months of these kind of mystical experiences that I couldn't explain and didn't want to explain. I came from a finance background. I was a banker for 20 years. This stuff should not happen. And I thought, okay, my mental illness is actually getting worse, not better. Well, then on the the night of the election in 2016, I was so upset because of the person who was elected in the United States. And because I was pretty deep into my liberal beliefs and things too at that point, and still into the whole political like discourse. And I talked to Justin and I got in a huge fight with my mom over it because she was on the opposite side of the table for me. And I'll never forget what happened. November 8th, 2016. I told Justin I just had a huge fight with my mom and over the presidential election. And he goes, is the sun still going to rise tomorrow? That's what he asked me via text. And him asking me that question was like another layer of something coming off of me. I was like, wait a minute. I am so upset and I'm actually fighting with my mom. I'm actually distraught over something that's really like a false division. Politics are, it's unfortunate that the world is embroiled in them, but they're not really what this whole journey is about. Politics are not. And I had to break through like that. That changed everything for me. And I awoke to my spiritual nature in those like 4 days. November 11th, 2018, I came home from a dance and I said to my husband, you know, this really weird thing happened. What had happened was there was somebody, I go to ecstatic dance and I'd gone to ecstatic dance. And there was somebody selling wands and all kinds of different things like crystals and things like that outside of the dance. And I came out and I saw this wand from across the room and I didn't buy that kind of thing at that time. I was interested in crystals. I'd always been interested in crystals and I'd always read tarot since I was a child. But this wand called to me from across the room and I walked across to it and I pointed at it and the vendor handed it to me. And when he laid it into my palm, it literally, he set it down and it twitched after he set it down like this. My kids were there. I had a friend who was there and the vendor was there and they all looked at me and I felt this power wash out from me. And my son turned to me, goes, Mom, cut it out. What are you doing? Stop that. And the vendor said, hey, point that thing somewhere else. I've never felt a connection between, you know, an implement and a person like that before. And that moment, like there'd been all these other things that had been happening. I was like, okay, I just got 4 people who witnessed what I felt and confirmed this supernatural thing that was happening. And that moment was kind of when my whole mindset shifted and I became aware and open. I still didn't know what twin flames were. I just knew that Justin was a part of this whole process. And so that was kind of the eggshell cracking of my awakening. It progressed from there, but I want to pause and let Justin, you know, if there's anything Justin wants to.
Yeah, obviously Michelle got there first. It just felt like as I continued to deny it, it would just throw these things back in that would prove that this was something that was different. It was real. It was, you know, this person, again, someone, I've always known Michelle all my life is the feeling that I always had when I was around her. You know, I've got some cousins that are the same way where I'll go and we'll just start having conversation like we haven't been apart in years, but maybe we haven't seen each other for 10 years, but they're still there and they're still a part of your life. That's what that same feeling was like with Michelle, who I'd never, ever had any association with. But when we were together, it was just like, she's supposed to be there. She's there for a reason. And so those things started to cross my mind. And then, of course, I decided to sabotage anything that we might have had, because then I started to start seeing other people at that time. In November, I think, too. I had to admit it to Michelle that I was doing that at some point. And when I could tell, when that brought some hurt on her, it felt like it was me being torn away. I started to panic. I had lost somebody closely to me. It was just something that I had never felt between a human before. I mean, I've had grandparents die. I've had all these other things that had happened in past throughout the life and stuff, but nothing that felt like this was like more than just death. It was excruciating pain, but not physical pain, but inside, mentally, Spiritually, things were just shaken and broke apart. And then I was afraid that I was never going to hear from Michelle again, because, you know, I had told her what had happened. It shocked her because she had been going through all this other stuff. How could I not have been going through any of that? And that's the stuff that wasn't making sense to her or to myself. And then
let me backtrack. So to my November 11th, 2016 moment, that awakening, I continued to pursue my studies. I started to learn more about spirituality. I got in touch with Metatron, who's the archangel that has been part of my life forever. And I denied him for a lot of years, not thinking that was really who was talking to me in my head. And he was. So I got back in contact with all of that. And it was, so November 11th, 2016 was that awakening moment, or January 11th, 2017. I'd been thinking a lot about Justin during all of my learning and my awakening. Like, what's this connection? Why do I feel it? I could feel him being with other people, and I didn't know why. I knew, like, I'd know if he'd cancel on me, like we'd make an appointment to see each other. And he only did it a couple of times, but he'd cancel on me. And I instantly knew that it was because there was someone else or something else is going on. And on January 11th, 2017, I was struggling with some piece of this. And the spirit team whispered to me, twin flames. He is your twin flame. And so immediately, of course, I went to Google and I Googled it. And at that time, there was information about twin flames out there. Wasn't as much as there is now. But I read this list and I was like, every single thing on these 10 things ticked off. And my spirit team spoke in my head after I read that list. They said, okay, now you know, don't read anymore. You need to go do this and figure it out on your own without other people's influences. And of course, for me, that made sense because any kind of religion or spiritual thing all my life had been eschewed by my dad. You know, it was all put away and I didn't believe in it. So this was my moment to open up and start to learn everything on my own without others' influences. I didn't say anything to Justin. I did not say a word to Justin because the second thing the spirit team said to me was, he's not going to know how to take this. And I thought, he'll think I'm crazy, this person I'm having an affair with, if I go and tell him this. So that was the 3D and the 5D going on, right? The spirit team saying, don't tell him yet. It's not your job to tell him. It took a whole nother year till his wife, we continued our affair for that year. And it got more and more intense. We were seeing each other more often. He actually got transferred to, he's a store manager. And he used to be up by the house that he lived in with his wife. Well, in early 2017, he got transferred to the store closest to my house, which is really was like a 45-minute drive away from his house. And so it was really weird. We started having lunch together every day. We started spending breakfast every morning. The relationship was no longer just about the physical connection or that. It was about everything else that we were feeling and being when we were together. And so his wife did find out about our affair and she wanted to meet me. And so during the course of the negotiations for her to meet me, because I agreed right away, I knew the spirit team had told me I was beginning to see my role as a healer and I was beginning to understand soul connections, right? I was beginning to understand that for every bit as important as his wife was to him and his path, if I was his twin flame and we were the same person, she was every bit as important to me. And so when she said she wanted to meet me, I was like, well, I have to, because it's just supposed to happen. And as we were in the negotiations for this whole meeting, one day, Justin and Marlene, I don't even know exactly how the conversation happened between the two of you, but his ex-wife challenged Justin. What did she say to you? She goes, do you know what twin flames are? And I was like, well, no, I don't know what twin flames are and stuff. Well, then she mentioned something about, she goes, you need to on yours, or, you know, my wife started searching out her Facebook page and, you know, trying to learn more about her and all this stuff. And she's about me. Asking me, yep. And I was posting about things about twin flames. And so she said to Justin, ask Michelle what a twin flame is, because she thinks you're hers. I remember that very specifically. He told me, he said, because she thinks she's yours. And Justin texts me, what Marlene says, I'm supposed to ask you, what is a twin flame? And I literally spent the next 8 hours texting him everything I had figured out since the year before about twin flames and everything I'd observed and why I felt, I never said you're my twin flame. I never said we belong together. I never said anything like that. I simply told him everything I'd learned. And at the end of that conversation, he goes, well, it sure helps a lot to know all this. And a lot more makes sense now. And it was like, if I had to pick, Padnyaa, an exact moment, that was Justin's awakening moment. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, that again, things are happening, starting to understand. When she explained everything to me, I didn't question it. It was more like I already knew all this stuff. It was just the weirdest feeling. But at the same time, I wasn't ready to accept it at that point either. I was like, oh man,
right.
It was too much to take on. But at the same time, that feeling of already knowing all this information, not having to search it out, it was the weirdest feeling that this is truth speaking, period. And that was the feeling that came over me, was this is all true, period. This stuff already. And I just accepted that. And like I said, I accepted it to a point, but I still kind of, was trying to avoid the situation, because even after that meeting we had, me and my wife, we went and had dinner afterwards. And we were there until like midnight, right? So we went to Sherry's at like 1 a.m. and had a whole meal and stuff and things. And we just sat there and we started talking. And from that point on, my wife was trying to understand what twin flames were, because she knew too. When I was explaining it to her, she knew. And that was scary to her, because that's when she started questioning, well, maybe you and Michelle are twin flames. And so, and at that point, I wasn't understanding it completely and stuff. So of course I was, letting her know, well, I'm not sure, we're going to work through this and stuff. And then, so she came alongside for a little bit, trying to understand. She'd come to me with questions as I was learning. She's like, I'm totally open with you learning this and figuring it out, as long as you share it with me and all this stuff. And that's how my spiritual journey was awakened.
Your soulmate, whoever you are partnering with as a life partner or whatever you want to call, they are so much instrumental in this whole journey in a process, because I think she was the one who actually was stalking Michelle's page, and she was the one who actually pointed out that, oh, Michelle thinks that she's your twin flame. So she was the one who actually brought up that whole episode for Justin.
Yes. We call her our soul. They're our soulmate helpers. I mean, that's really how we think of her. And we love her to this day. Every commitment that Justin ever made to her is equally mine. Just like every commitment I made to my husband, my ex-husband, is equally Justin's. And as much as it might be hard at times, even still, it's not so much anymore, because we've figured out, we've put our ego down on all this and we're fully invested in it. But for a while, we'd still buck up against it and go, well, you get those feelings about, why do I have to do this for him or that for him, the ex-husband, right? Or for the ex-wife. But it's like, no. If we truly believe and know what we are, then we are every bit as responsible for them as we are for each other. It was 2 months later that this feeling was building inside of me. I hated every lie I was telling my husband. I hated every lie I was telling my parents, my friends, even my kids were being lied to, even though they were young. I was not who I was supposed to be. And it beat harder and harder inside of me until June 11th, 2018. I woke up in the morning not intending ever to tell my husband the truth, but that was the day that it came out. And it was really funny, because I didn't even realize until that night, my husband and I spent all day. Of course, he had thought we had kind of gotten past the cheating, because I'd stopped all the other cheating. I'd been monogamously cheating with Justin since August of 2016, not with any demands from him. I didn't expect him to be. In my mind, I thought maybe he was being monogamous with me, but I had just not lost interest in everybody else. And my husband, I had to come clean with him about everything. A lot of stuff I hadn't even told him about in therapy. It just all came tumbling out that June 11th, 2018. What was funny was that night, Justin and I were talking every day on his way to and from work, and he called me and I said, well, I told Ken, it's bad, because there was a lot of the yelling and stuff. And I was like, but I feel better underneath. I wasn't crying I wasn't upset. I was like, this is right. This is what I need to do. And I said to Justin, oh my God, do you realize what day it is? It's 6/11. It's June 11th. This is the 3-year anniversary date of the first time we met. And Justin was driving home, and he looked around and all the cars around him and trucks, every single one, a license plate or on the side of the car had a 6 or an 11 right at that moment when I said that to him. That was one of the most crazy synchronicity moments. And he said, I can't believe it. Everywhere I'm looking, there's a 6 and 11 right now. I started making my plans for divorce, and my husband and I started figuring out. It was actually very calm and things proceeded pretty well. I was committed to making things as non-traumatic in the family unit as I could. So I tried to maintain my calm. And meanwhile, I was, talking to Justin, meeting him every day, letting him know what was going on. But I could feel he was still recalcitrant. He wasn't ready to tell his wife yet. And I really had to struggle during that summer. Like, I did it. Why can't he do it? I want him to do it. I told the truth and I came clean and I'm free and I want him to do it. But I never said that to him. I didn't ever want to pressure him or make him feel that way. Yet energetically, that whole time, he felt every bit of my impatience and everything like that. Finally, it came around to September of 2018, and the Lionsgate in August was the start of it. I did some really hardcore journaling and really got to the root of my trauma and really got to the root of our twin flame connection, which was figuring out that unconditional love really is unconditional. If I love him, the only thing I can possibly want is for him to be happy. And if being with Marlene and finishing that life, that marriage, being in that was what made him happy, I had to do everything I could for him to have that. If he was my twin and I couldn't be whole unless he was whole, he must be missing something that he needs from his wife. And so I need to let go and I need to completely let him do what he needs to do. So I told him, I did this ritual on the full moon and on the new moon, and I journaled. And we were talking one morning when he was on his way to work, and I just told him all of that, basically what I said to you. And I said, you have to go do what you want. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I'm going to be here. And when you're ready, I'm here and I'm waiting and I'm wholly yours. I'm ready for us to be together, but you have to do what's right for you. And that was like, I don't know, that was a moment where everything changed for him. I think for me, certainly, because I found this peace that I didn't know could possibly exist inside of me. But I just knew we'd already had these visions together about that. We knew we were going to be writing books and making movies and helping people in the twin flame community. And more than twin flames, just spiritual awakening in general, because being a twin flame really is just a flavor of a spiritual awakening journey. This whole life and this whole existence is about finding whatever thread it is that can help you unwind your truth. And twin flames is just how some of us figure it out. Other people figure it out other ways, through religion or whatever, right? So we had already seen that we were going to be writing books and helping people and helping awaken the world and bring light to the world. And he knew that. And so me finally coming to the point of saying, okay, my hands are off now. I love you. I'm always here for you. My love is unconditional. You go be happy. I'm going to go be happy over here. I'm going to start writing the books. I'm going to separate from my husband. I'm going to figure stuff out. And it was like this moment where we both came to that. What happened on your side?
When it was almost like I took it as an ultimatum when I first heard it from her. It's like, okay, she's going to stop everything. I got to give up, this or that, or else, that was kind of what it kind of felt like at the time. I was like, oh, that isn't supposed to be the way it works. So then I had to start digging down deep inside me. And, me and my ex-wife would go on trips, and she'd ask me more questions about twin flames. And then she's like, you're going to leave me, aren't you? You're going to leave me for Michelle, aren't you? And, me, I was like, well, I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know where I want to go. I tried to be as honest as I could be, knowing that, and what I told Marlene was, I got to do what's right for me and what makes me happy. Because if I'm not happy, you're not happy for sure. Because if I'm not happy with myself, there's no way you can be happy with me. And those type of things. So I was trying to figure that out, and she wanted to continue on to the journey with me. She was willing to look into all this stuff and figure it out. But I was like, no, you got to do this for yourself. You're going into it all wrong. This is what I've done for years with religion. You got to go into it not because someone else is doing it. You got to go into it because you want to, and you want to seek it out. And those were the things that I was starting to notice, that, she wanted to be the follower into this thing. And, that that leads people to nowhere. I mean, if you're not willing to accept it wholeheartedly, that, you know, you found the truth and you need to expose it, there's no way that you can feel all the transformations and all that kind of stuff unless your body is totally open to it. So after a couple of those conversations, and I knew about September, started rolling around. I'm like, oh, I got to do what's right for me. And at that point, I'd already decided. Now it was just, okay, when am I going to have this conversation with her about my happiness and the things that I need to go and pursue and do? And so, you know, we're looking at dates. I was looking at dates, and it was funny because I had a nephew on her side that was getting married in September. So I was like, okay, I found every excuse to put it off until after that wedding. So I didn't want to screw things up there. And things like that. And, you know, I guess that was the way it was meant to be, because the minute the wedding was over, we went home that evening. And that's when I laid all kinds of things out. You know, this is, you know, me and Michelle have been seeing each other, even though I've been denying it. Michelle was there. She knew that it was going to happen, that it was time. And so Michelle and one of her friends were sitting outside in a vehicle for support. You know, they even told me, hey, we're here, just go ahead. And, you know, it took some time to get it all out. There was a lot of crying in the house and stuff. And then you know, at some point I could just hear this angel say, go now, you've got to go. And the first thing that I could think of was Sodom and Gomorrah, when they're leaving out of the city and stuff. And the angel told them to keep going and don't look back. That's all that I could remember, because that had been burned into my knowledge for years of what it was like to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. You know, if you turned around and looked back, you turned to a pillar of salt or whatever, you know. And so I just remember that. And it was just like, it was like an angel taking my arms, heading me towards the door and pushing me out and saying, don't look back, don't look back. And I wanted to look back, but then I was like, you know, all I could remember was this passage from the Bible about Lot's wife and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I've got to go. And so I just continued out the door, and Michelle was waiting for me, and I got in her car, and we took off.
Actually, he got in his car and could only drive about 3 blocks. And he pulled over to the side of the road. And I knew I was driving behind him, my friend and I really wasn't trying to be in his way. I was totally trying to be support, but he pulled over to the side of the road, and I just knew. I mean, I could feel him tearing apart inside, and I had felt Marlene's pain, and it was awful. I was crying in the car, feeling what was going on inside the house. He pulled over to the side of the road, and I got out, and I just walked up to the driver's side, and I said, get out. I had him get out and get in the passenger seat. My friend drove my car, and I drove his car, because he was in so much pain, feeling her pain, feeling his own guilt and remorse for how long everything that we feel, right? From that night forward, we've pretty much never been apart. And because we just feel right. Things only feel right. The world feels right when we're together. And we perceive the world in this binary way, this twin flame way. Like, I don't remember things that happened to me as well when I'm not with him. It's like I'm missing part of my perception now. And that's really been what that journey is about. And that's what has strengthened with us over time, is this ability to walk into a place and know where we are in the world, know who we are, understand the people around us, and just be able to, I don't know, there's some connection that happens between us and the world now when we're together in 3D.
This is so great to hear, because as we see that either of the one from the twin flame pair is struggling in the matrix, and there is some sort of a struggle to overcome your ego and listen to your soul and have that courage to really do whatever it takes. Great respect for Justin, because especially when we see this dynamic, mostly the male twin flames, we see that, there is a lot in their heart. They do understand a lot of things. Overall, if you see, there are a lot of male twin flames who are falling into the logical side of their life more than following their heart. And I think he has really won it, in this life, that he was able to overcome his ego, his physical ego, and follow what his soul says. And I think that is what is made you both struggle less and be in union. Finally, you are together and are able to focus on the further journey rather than just having this drama of chasing each other or running from each other. So that's
Right.
really, really amazing.
Union, less than about being in a relationship, has really become about what we're meant to do and be in this world.
Absolutely.
When you have the obsession early in the twin flame journey and you have that drumbeat inside your head of them, they're the only thing you think of. They're the first thought in your head when you wake up, the last thought in your head when you go to bed at night. They're always there. That's still there, but in union, it's like that's just become this background soundtrack. I know where he is. I feel him. I can check in with him. We don't have any of those old ego filters there anymore. And so it's been able to shift from being about the relationship to about what the relationship can do in this world and what the connection is meant to show everybody. And that really is that it's possible to live with absolutely no division between you and somebody else. We are one, but it's not in a sycophantic way or an egotistical way. We are one because we have a job to do and we can live in complete harmony. And we have to live in balance and harmony in order to be able to share our message and talk about how religion, really religion might be the pathway, but it's not the answer. Politics might be the pathway to you figuring things out, but it's not the answer. Family, so on and so forth. It's had to become about exactly what you said, listening to your soul. And if we could be together peaceably and in balance in this complete separated 3D state, but yet together and understanding everything in 5D, it's like bringing the 5D and the 3D into this equilibrium, right? So I hope that
Wow.
made sense.
As you started understanding that, okay, there is something more to you than just being a mere romantic couple, and you are twin flames and you have a purpose to share. What were the challenges?
Yeah.
Still
Well,
is.
everybody's
Money.
idealizing, like, if you see everybody's wanting to be in union, and it's almost like, people are romanticizing
Oh,
it
yeah.
and idealizing it and dramatizing it. So what
It's
is it
not
for
a
you?
box of chocolates. It's not a box of chocolates, that's for sure. I mean, it's enjoyable at times, but I mean, there's some taxing conversations that you have to have together when you first start living together. And, in my past, if I got into a conversation with my ex-wife, I just totally shut down, go away, and remove myself. Now that's hard. Now you have to have the full conversation, the good, the bad, and the ugly of whatever it is you're struggling with. I don't know how many times we'd go to bed and we'd first be upset with each other, and then we'd have to talk because there's something wrong. And then all of a sudden it's 5 a.m. and we still haven't gotten, everything figured out until about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we're like, this is what we were supposed to learn from this whole thing. Everything that we went through was for a reason. And that was one night. We had many nights like that where, one's feeling something different from the other. And so why? What's going on? And it's hard to still put that ego mask away. I mean, it's easy to throw something that you've been living with for, well, for me, it's 50 years of learning how to deal with stuff, but now having to deal with it differently because now you can't hide it. You can't hide it from your twin flame. They know what you're feeling, how you're thinking, what you're doing. So then you got to start thinking in a different way. Okay, everything that I think affects my twin. So if I'm feeling bad and don't want to talk or don't want to do this, then of course they're going to feel like, well, that's you hating them or pushing them off. When reality is you just want to, that used to be one of my mechanisms. I would shut down for days. I would go, if I had the weekend off and I was upset at my ex-wife, I would shut down, not speak, don't talk, stay in bed for 24, 48 hours, get back up and go back to work. Because that's the way I dealt with things. I was never an explosive person. No one that would start screaming and yelling unless it's something that was buried way down deep inside that would explode every now and then. But for the most part, I was keep it to myself. What am I doing wrong? And all this stuff. And so she had to learn that was not about, it wasn't about her, but the reasons why she was feeling it was because, well, she felt everything I was feeling. And I had to learn that on the opposite end. So now I have to, be mindful that when I am feeling bad or doing something that harms myself is actually harming her too. So those are things that you have to learn and change. And that was months of that kind of stuff, even to the point where sometimes you just didn't want to have conversations because you knew you were going to go to 5 a.m. and you got to get up at 7 a.m., and go to work.
But it was
Which,
healing.
right, it was healing.
And
Yeah. And so because, you don't want to spend that time doing that kind of work because, all of a sudden you got to get up and go back out. I have to go back out into the 3D world and work a 10-hour day without my twin. And so that's very hard and that's very stressful. So not only did I not want to have conversations because of that, but those were some of the other reasons why I'd rather be in bed next to my twin, enjoying the peacefulness and the time of that. Because when we're together and it's nighttime, it's peaceful, it's restful, it's the place where you go. There's times where I don't want to even close my eyes and sleep for the night because I'd rather just be there holding her, lying next to her and stuff like that. But our team was like, nope, you got to work on these things. These are the things that you have to work through. And once you get through those, then you can sleep or enjoy each other's presence and time with each other before you have to go back out in the 3D world. So,
and it had to be the part of that is the pure vulnerability. It's so hard. We're so built into shells and not telling our truth in these bodies and in these societies and in this life right now, that really this bit about being in union, and that taking all of your challenges and misunderstandings between each other, taking them head on, is really about learning to be comfortable in complete vulnerability. Something goes awry between us or the energy gets off, I have to be willing to step up and say, hey, I feel like this is wrong, and not be afraid of the potential outcome, or not afraid of the conversation that is going to ensue, or not afraid of the pain of the healing and the admitting that I'm wrong, or that maybe it's me who's causing this problem, right? All of that has to be put aside, because when that energy isn't smooth between us, it's really hard to enjoy the togetherness, like Justin said.
Right. I think what we've learned the most is when it comes up, you talk about it then.
Yeah.
Because, anything that we ended up talking about in the middle of the night could have been handled earlier in the day. So the team was trying to teach us, no, you need to speak your truth at that point or at that time and try to figure this out at that time. Don't put it off, because if you put it off, you're going to deal with it later.
Right. And it'll snowball, just like all the lessons that we refuse to learn. They come back bigger and bigger in our lives. It's just, it's even closer to the heart when you're a twin flame and you're trying to be in union. All of those little things they're like these shards of glass, that even though the shard of glass might be getting smaller, the pain is even bigger. So you just learn to really live in full truth and vulnerability all the time. Yeah.
How is it for you both when you started realizing your soul purpose? Like how did you discover what was your mission?
Well, we've known that it is to continue to help others and continue to serve others, but not put it to the point of where that's all you're doing and not taking care of yourselves. So we do, break away and have our downtime and stuff when we need to. Mm-hmm. But the focus is to get the message out there and help others that are seeking those, and like we tell all the folks that come along, we're like, you can't follow what we went through, because each twin flame story is different. Each situation is going to be different. What we went through, you will not go through. You've got your own. You've made this journey. You've already planned this out. It is yours. No one else can do it for you. And those are the things that we try to be upfront and honest with folks, because there's sometimes you go out there and you start reading stuff online and they're telling you exactly, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. That's not right. It's not true. First, you need to start with yourself. Where are you at? Even before you enter a twin flame relationship, where are you at as a person? How do you feel about yourself? Because if you enter it with all the wrong stuff, then you will continue to have that running and chasing.
Yeah. And we knew, there was this moment when we actually knew what our mission was. One day I said, we're supposed to share our story. And that's what we have to do. That's what this is really about, is sharing what's happened with us. And that's what we continue to do.
So in what way you are paying forward this realization?
Right. So we write a novella series called Souls on Fire, Memoirs of a Twin Flame True Love Journey, which tells the story. There are only two parts of it available yet, but it's basically telling it's like a novel version of our story, so that people can follow it and be entertained in some ways, but it's got that deeper level story, the spiritual story there for those who are curious and want to understand it. It's going to build all of the spiritual stuff underneath, because we want people who aren't sure, like we weren't sure, or didn't understand, or didn't know where to look. We want to find some way to reach a hand out to them. And so we tell our story through the books. We have a website, twinflamewarriors.com, where we write blog articles. We offer mentoring and coaching services. On Wednesday evenings, we have an hour where we get together, and anybody who wants to join can ask us questions about union, about our journey, about spiritual awakening. So we just try to really put ourselves out there and say, let us be a resource for you. And here's our story. How does it compare to your story? Maybe you're going to recognize parts of our story in reading it that relate to your own, and then you won't feel so alone. Because one of the key things of the awakening process and discovering Justin for me was I felt so alone at times. I was like, I'm crazy. Nobody else is going through this. Nobody has this kind of relationship. And I felt alone. And so we try to be there for other people so they don't feel as alone as we did.
Absolutely. And I think that is the need of the hour, because then after Prasad passed away, I was pushed somehow to start this one-to-one sessions, because there were a lot of people who were wanting to share, and the situation is like this, that they want to share with somebody, but they are afraid that their family will judge them. They have nobody to share it with. And we need more people like you and me who are willing to listen to others without any judgment,
Right.
because that is what is the most healing process.
The answer to everything is love. The answer to everything is love.
Absolutely.
And us sharing is love, and you sharing is love. And you know, that's really what it all comes down to.
So I want to ask you, because of course you have been on a spiritual path, you have your spirit team, you have been guided, you are on your spiritual purpose. Is there anything which comes to your mind that, okay, what does the future hold for the Twin Flame Collective, or for you as a Twin Flame pair?
The twin flame, the whole reason twin flames are here and awakening in such large numbers as they are right now is exactly something that I alluded to earlier. In this world of black and white, of literally race, beliefs, black and white, we're all either on this side or on that side. It does not have to be that way. And in fact, it should not be that way. We can live black and white in complete union and without any of the ego between us. And twin flames are here to put that on display for the rest of the world. We can all be one. And it's that whole spiritual awakening and looking inside yourself and figuring out that you are part of the collective expressions of the universal divine energy of love. Even though we're in these separate little bodies, we are all part of the same fabric. And twin flames are uniquely positioned to show that, I think.
Yeah.
What would you add?
I was just going to say that, we're all here to learn certain things and do certain things throughout our lives. And so to concentrate on one individual or two individuals that aren't doing it right, who's to say that that wasn't their journey? What's to say that that wasn't their path that they needed to go on while they were here to learn something that they're going to take back to the 5D and be able to continue to grow? Us judging each other like we do, coming from man-made religions, there's a lot of judging that goes on in those things, even though they won't talk about it or make you feel like you're not judging. That person's just doing something that's not right, period. Boom. They need to go away. Those type of thoughts, those type of things that they say. We just need to realize that everyone is here on their own personal journey, trying to figure this whole thing out. And, things that people do, things that people say, it's all part of their learning and their processing. And if we can come to that conclusion with everything, I think the planet would open up more to the love and to be part of it and to look at it, because we're accepting each other for who we are.
I mean, our story, we have adultery, addiction, lying, everything you can imagine. We can't judge anybody. We've done it all between the two of us. So that's how we should all live. And that's,
coming out and realizing those things, and the judgment thing is huge. Any conversation that I start almost anymore is, believe me, I'm not judging you. I'll listen to what you have to say, especially being in the field of work that I am at. That comes up from time to time, where a person wants to have an honest conversation with you and they don't know if they can trust you or not, or you're going to judge them the minute that they start talking, And so being able to reassure them that that's not going to happen, and then be able to show that afterwards, is something that helps them on their journey, that they can start trusting people, or there isn't all this judgment out there. You just got to find the right person or the right things, or, continue to grow in your own belief system that, not everybody is out there to hurt you or harm you. And we shouldn't be that on the receiving end of that either, using those type of things. So
yeah, we're here to be light in the world. We're here to be the perfect balance of the divine masculine and feminine, to show the world that it's possible to live in this state, and the whole world we could take our little dyad, right, and explode it to encompass the whole world. That's what we're here for.
I'm getting goosebumps as I listen to you, because it's a great experience for me seeing somebody together and talking about it. Both of you are like sitting together and talking about union is like, wow, like that's like a great feeling itself. So I want you to also talk about how you have dealt with Justin's heart condition, and whatever you want to say to the audience.
How did the whole thing even start?
it probably started when I started feeling exhausted coming upstairs.
Yeah.
And out of breath. So I knew there was something wrong, because, for the most part, for the last 5-6 years, I've been pretty healthy. So then that started to concern me. My doctor had mentioned that I had a heart murmur. So that was kind of concerning. When I started feeling the effects of shortness of breath after climbing a set of stairs, he was concerned, obviously, at that point. And so they sent me in, and they finally were able to diagnose what I had, which is HOCM. I don't know how to say the whole word.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is a thickening of the heart.
Thickening of the heart. So when they talk about a swollen heart or whatever, that's one of the things that they talk about causing that. And it's a disease that a lot of athletes die from, where they'll just be running down the road and drop dead, and they're perfectly healthy. It's because it's a genetic thing that they didn't know about or had diagnosed yet. So once we had gotten the information on that, we did research on it. And, there were some options that they gave us. That could be a pill that you could take that's $80,000 a year to take, and it might shrink the muscle inside the heart to let the valve take back over. I'm glad I didn't go that route, because the damage had already been done to the valve from HOCM. It had, and so that was another good sign of our decision of going ahead and doing that. And, we met doctors. I mean, my cardiologist, he's a specialist in HOCM. So we were getting all these, signs that, hey, you've got this team behind you. This is the right thing to do. It's the right way to go. There was things I wanted to do and get done, because again, you're going to be put under anesthesia. So, there's some things that I didn't want to leave undone if anything else was to happen. Honestly, going through this whole thing, I knew it was meant to be. I felt like I was okay. People were like, it's amazing you don't feel paranoid about the surgery, 2 days out, 1 day out. It was a great experience on that end and stuff. So February 4th, we had the surgery. Everything went well, came out of it. There was some healing and things, obviously, that's been rough and hard. And it's an expensive surgery too. So, we tried to put all that kind of thoughts on the back burner. Just get through the surgery first, then we'll worry about the things that need to be taken care of later. So they had to keep me two extra days. But after that, everything else kind of went okay.
Right. We, to take it back a step, we'd been together in union for about almost 3 years when we got this news. And it was scary, because it felt like everything we've told you guys, we've overcome all of this, our whole story, and we're together and we're figuring it out, and we're getting traction in our twin flame mission. And all of a sudden this life-threatening thing comes up. And of course, as I'd met you and knew what you had gone through with Prasad, and him not attending to his heart condition, or not having had time to attend to it yet, whatever happened there. And it was like, we knew that we just had to take this head on. And as Justin said, the whole team lined up. We had the best doctors, the quickest resolution, the best way to get through it. And it all just came together. Now, the money that he talked about, part of the thing is Justin continues to work a 3D job. He has a job so that we have benefits and money to support us as we're working on our mission. A lot of what we do is a labor of love, as you know. So we started a GoFundMe campaign once we found out that this was a several $100,000 surgery. We were fortunately only going to be on the hook for part of that, because he does have insurance, but it's still a huge chunk of money that we had to pay out of pocket to cover our share of all this. So we did start a GoFundMe campaign. just to help us with everything. And that you can still find. It's called The Tale of Justin's Too Big Heart. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a website, twinflamewarriors.com. And if you want to read the whole story of Justin's experience with Hokum, we did video updates. We have updates from the hospital, and you can find that from twinflamewarriors.com. There's a GoFundMe link if anybody were interested in learning more about it. And the GoFundMe campaign is still open. We're super thankful. We received about a third of the funds that we were targeting. So far, we've received about a third of the funds, and we're just hopeful that more people will find it, and maybe they can help with $5 or something, anything, because all of it helps. Right now, we've had to employ credit cards and all kinds of things to patchwork together what we can to pay for all of this. There's never any question about paying for it, and we'll pay it all back. We'll figure out a way. It's just that we're thankful to those who could help us make it a little bit easier with giving. So, and I'm so thankful. He came through the surgery great. His heart sounds so different when I lay on his chest and I listen to it. It used to sound like squishy, and it was working so hard, and his whole body would shake every time his heart would beat because that condition, and now it's like, so his body is much calmer, and I feel it. It's throughout my being too that I feel his healing in this experience.
Hopeful about it.
And even if anybody can't contribute, we don't care. We put the information, again, just like our twin flame journey, we put all the information about the Hokum journey out there so that other people like us who are young and relatively healthy, who, if they have a heart problem, don't pause, don't stop, go get it taken care of. And again, we put our story out there so that other people who experience this don't feel so alone. We're not alone in this world. We all just have to be willing to be vulnerable and share our truth to find that out and to accept that we're not alone.
I'm very happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us share our story. We very much appreciate it. And, if there's time in the future when we can follow up or bring other information, we'd be happy to. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties again. Great. Thank you so much, Padnyaa. We appreciate it.
Yes.
And we love you.
Love you.
Love you. Bless you. Take care, both of you.
You take care. Bye-bye.